Hello class, this is Dr. Brown. I have a slide presentation I would like for you to see. This is for your very first assignment. So I'm going to go into course content and assignments. First assignment, why is technology important for teachers? Now, one of the things you're going to be learning is how to use a think sheet. And so I have a slide presentation. Please follow along as I explain what each slide means. Think sheets are a classroom tool used to guide students in three main things. Now, you're used to worksheets. I realize all of us have used worksheets at one time or another, but a think sheet is a much better term for teachers to use and a term to guide students in their use. The three main kinds of activities or uses are planning my learning task using strategic thinking. If you have to prepare a special project and report for one of your methods classes, for example, you might list in steps the things that you'll need to do, where you begin, what do you do next, how do you complete it. That's strategic planning. What kind of resources do you need? How will you check your work? Again, that's all a strategic kind of thinking. And if you put that on paper, then that's going to help you make your project more likely to be successful. The second kind is the self-regulation or performance control. Those who work with special education are familiar with self-regulation, and these kinds of think sheets help people keep on track. Very useful. And then the last one is reflection or self-assessment. Similar to self-regulation, this kind of think sheet can be used to help a student look at their work and make decisions on accuracy, completeness, and how well they were able to complete or bring closure to a particular project, like drawing conclusions. Now, a think sheet is often used with a type of learning strategy called inquiry-based learning, because students will, with inquiry-based learning, they're going to generate questions that matter. Now, usually you think of older students like 4th, 5th, 6th grade, and then on through high school. But younger students can begin a lesson or a classroom activity by asking questions that are important to what they're going to learn. Students also can use authentic data. If they were going to do a simple project where they plant a seed and then watch for it to sprout, well, those students might keep a little diary or draw pictures of what happens over a period of time. That's authentic data. And then also this type of strategy teaches self-regulation, because you have to be careful to record data on a regular basis. College and career readiness, you've heard that term, and inquiry-based learning is a very important process for those getting ready to enter college. So if you're teaching high school and middle school, this is a good thing to think about. And then sometimes a teacher might ask, well, why is it important to me? If I wanted to just give lectures, especially those who are teaching in middle school and high school, you may say, I'm going to present lectures, I'm going to give PowerPoints. For what I teach, that's best. Well, a think sheet could be used during the note-taking process, during direct instruction or lecture. It helps a student process the information. When they take notes and organize notes, they are also being mentally or cognitively engaged in what they're hearing and seeing, and that helps that learning process become more efficient. It also helps them recall basic facts. You go back and you reread your notes, but as you are actually writing notes, it helps ensure this is going to go into the long-term memory. And then when students are taking notes or completing some kind of a think sheet during a lecture, they can see relationships or make connections between main ideas. This is especially important in teaching social studies or science and in some literature courses. All right, types of think sheets. The planning kind. When would students use a think sheet for planning purposes? One that most everyone is familiar with, the KWL. And then another kind of planning sheet would be directions for data collection, like here's what you do to record the growth of your seed into a plant. And then sometimes a planning think sheet might record or provide steps for processes in a laboratory. Most of you have seen that kind of thing in your science classes. Let's look at this particular KWL think sheet. This is called a KWHL, which is a little different because it's good for 21st century classrooms. What do I already know? And the student can write in here or use a digital device to type in. What do you already know about a topic? What do I want to know? And then the L, what have I learned? But this particular one plugs in, how do I find out? Because there are so many resources now that students can go to, jotting down different resources, even a website bibliography would be very helpful. So this is the kind of planning think sheet that uses that well-known KWL process. How can I find the answers to the questions? How can we find out what we want to learn? How did the learning take place? How can we learn more? And how will we find the information? Now let's go into the second category of think sheets. These are those performance think sheets. The first one was planning. The second one is performance. And this relates to that self-regulation, you recall that, or self-assessment. And here are some types of think sheets. Now, there are 4 different ones listed here, and as you're viewing this PowerPoint, you can't, in your short-term memory, remember all that's being said in this slide presentation. So you might want to create your own little simple think sheet, and you might put headings like think sheet category 1, think sheet category 2, think sheet category 3, and jot down those main kinds of think sheets. Then when you go back and start preparing a lesson for this class or a lesson plan for other classes, you can say, I'm going to prepare what's known as a think sheet, and this is going to be a way for students to keep engaged in the learning process. That's one of the biggest benefits of a think sheet, being engaged in the learning process. The first one, focus, helps bring their attention. A lot of students and teachers might call this a hook to get their interest. The next one is reasoning and analytical thinking. This is where a student might take a reading passage and chart it, or put main ideas in a table. The third one is distributed reasoning, where you share your ideas. And then the last think sheet for this category is evaluating outcomes in relation to goals. This is not the same as assessment. This is comparing what was completed with what the original learning objective was stated, and this often would be what the student would state as their learning goal. Look at this. Here is a focus think sheet. This is where either the students or the teacher can generate in their mind, brainstorm keywords, and then enter those keywords in a word search. And then it will display this kind of a graphic. These are community helpers that you see for younger children. And that would be a great way to, again, get them to focus on what they're going to be learning. Who are our most important community helpers? What is the best career choice for me? And so the website that I used was wordle.net. Sometimes it's hard to use that particular software in the schools, but you could do it at home and print it out and bring it for the children to see. Now, the second one is the organization. This is the Performance Think Sheet where you organize information. This is called a persuasion map. And again, it's just a matter of creating charts, tables, timelines to organize information. You'll be using tables in this class or charts to read and organize information that you've read, especially important in an online course. But these are simple things that I think most of us have done in a classroom, but to go ahead and organize it and plan in advance on how this will be done is a good way to keep up with your learning strategies and what you'll be doing with your students. Here's one that was created by a graduate student a couple of years ago. This is a performance analytical reasoning, history content, where the student did a reading, took a reading in history, and then they located all the verbs in the reading. Then they put the main idea of the content, and then they matched it up to a particular period of time. By the time the student or the reader organizes all this information, it might take a little while and it might be a little tedious for them, but they will definitely read and understand and better be able to remember what was in that particular reading passage. Distributive reasoning is simply a matter of working in groups to share knowledge. These days you might see a term called knowledge sharing. This is if it's done properly in the classroom, students truly can learn better and brainstorm and come up with some creative ideas, but their discussions need to be guided and facilitated, and they might need a think sheet to help them in their discussions so that they don't get sidetracked. Distributed reasoning think sheet. And then evaluating outcomes. Again, this is a matter of comparing what you've done with what you said you were going to do. And you can use think sheets called checklists. You can provide rubrics so the student can generate their own rubric. You can have peer review forms, which are especially useful whenever students are providing presentations to each other. If the ones in the audience have a peer review form and they're graded on their peer reviews, they're more likely to stay engaged in the learning process. And then self-reflection, the third category. Writing journals, writing blogs, providing reflection rubrics. And if you go online with Google and you type in the images category on Google, if you type in think sheets, reflections, or think sheets self-assessment, think sheets goals and evaluations, you'll see a lot of examples of reflection rubrics and reflection journals, and these can be very good from the very youngest student to high school. All right, so now on to the next slide. These are the kinds of questions that might be on a self-reflection think sheet. Review questions, tasks, and ideas in the lesson. Did I do it or not? And how well did I do it? Think about answers located in books, internet, the teacher, and other classmates. Match the right answers to my writing, my drawing, or my presentation. This, of course, would mean that the correct or best answers would be provided for them to match to what they did. Thinking about what you need to change, and then how will this project or lesson help me in the future? All of those things, if children can learn to truly reflect on these particular questions, over time, it will be used in a great way to facilitate their learning. And you might find it also useful to apply to your own personal learning in your college classes. And so this is a image that summarizes ThinkSheets, the types of ThinkSheets. And this is the kind of thing you could print it and stick it in a notebook, kind of help you to recall what the different kinds are. And this will be useful for you in this class and hopefully in the future.